it's really hard to go through a John Maxwell study and like clip along. Like, it's really, really hard to like keep it at a certain time frame. And on one hand, I want to make sure that we are sticking to like not very long with us on here, but again, I don't want us to just plow over stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want us to miss anything. So yeah, I
find also that there's so many different aspects and so many different angles that even if I quickly browse over something thinking, well, that doesn't really touch me, it would be a big deal for someone here possibly, right? So it's very hard to kind of nitpick of what we want to actually talk about.
I know. I agree. But thank you guys so much for joining us this morning. I'm going to turn myself around here. I'm actually at our church in Swift Current and realized that I'd said yes to something when I had you beautiful ladies doing this book study. And so, yeah, one of those days where we're doing about 3 things at a time. I think that'll work better. So anyway, let's jump right into the law of the mirror. You must see value in yourself to add value to yourself. This quote actually really caught me too. The one, it's going to be a really intense study when the title and the quote under the title on the first page are things that just get you, right? Personal development is the belief that you are worth the effort, time, and energy needed to develop yourself.
I would love to stop there a little bit because that's just, why is that such a big deal to so many people?
I know, right?
Right? Why do we have such a hard time believing that we are worth the effort?
And so many people, I think, never even consider that they are.
No, that's right. I need to move.
Yeah, I'm just grabbing my headphones because I want to make sure that this isn't weird. I'm thinking of a certain individual in particular who is not a part of Plexus, who just has no concept that they have value and that they should do anything to try to change their situation or to try to better themselves. I think that it just has never entered their mind that they're valuable enough.
And it keeps people from being successful. Like, that is the one thing where the saying, you're your own worst enemy, that's exactly what that is. Like he says, like, why do so many people fail to grow and reach their potential? One of the main reasons is low self-esteem. Many people just don't believe in themselves, right? They don't see the possibilities that God has put in them. They possess 100 acres of possibilities. Yeah. So, but yet they never cultivate them. It's like having all this land. I could have a wonderful crop, but I'm not going to seed it. Because I don't think it'll grow. Right?
Yeah. Like, Amy just threw this in the chat. Personal value is very separate and different. I'm just correcting. Different than profession or family value. Self-care, selfishness, self-esteem are separate because they have separate definitions. Yeah. But I think, maybe a lot of us never really considered the idea that we had value until we hit Plexus. Like, I think that that's a very real possibility, right? That, you would never tell somebody else that you don't have value or that they don't have value. And we'll talk more about that with the story that he tells. You'd never tell somebody else that they didn't have value, but you would say that about yourself. And I was saying to my 13-year-old on the way here, that whole quote again, if we actually realized how powerful our thoughts were, we'd never think a negative one ever again. Right? So I love this story that he tells.
We were just discussing yesterday that is it possible when someone is so deeply, deeply scarred, take for example, Janetta, she was By the time I was 5 years old, I had already started to believe that I was not only inferior, but I was also a child abandoned by her own mom. As a child, I had no place, no voice, and no worth at all. And so imagine at 5, right? And so we were discussing, is it possible that a person can become so broken in spirit and so broken that they cannot be, what's the word? That they cannot be redeemed from that. I'm not speaking on a spiritual level, but on a physical, mental, emotional level, right? And really, I don't think that is possible. I think people can grow themselves. I think everyone has the capacity to grow themselves.
Yeah. Well, and just like I said to this person that I was talking about before, this week, they'd made some comment about they couldn't change their situation because they don't have any skills. They don't have, like, this is the only set of skills I have. I don't have any education. I can't change where I'm at. And I said, well, I believe that you can, but as long as you continue to tell yourself that you can't,
Yes.
This is where you will stay.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter how much belief I have in you.
Because
if you refuse, you are reaffirming absolutely everything. Bottom of page 37, she says, I get a chance to be anyone I want to be. And if we actually gave 100% belief into that, right? Like, I think sometimes, especially in this business, we think, oh, I could be a diamond. Like, wow, I could be a diamond. That would be great. And we start to go there in our minds of what a diamond would feel like, right? What being a diamond would feel like. But then we do this horrible thing that society likes to call a reality check. What is that saying, Marge?
Being realistic is something about being mediocre. It's Will Smith. I don't have my phone here. Being realistic is the most common path to mediocrity.
Yeah, that would be it.
And you know what? It's playing safe. It's putting yourself, if you think of the spectrum, and if you think of, okay, so you're all the way over on this spectrum, like Janelle said, imagining what it would feel like to be a diamond, what it would look like for your family, what it would look like for yourself, who you would feel you would be as a diamond, all the way over on that full achievement spectrum, right? You have achieved what you have worked for. And then you have that middle ground. And then you have the far end of, no, that's never going to happen. So we land in the middle ground where it's safe. Yeah. It's mediocre, right? You can't really push yourself past that because it's a form of self-protection, because you don't want to push past the things that are hard to grow.
Well, and the other thing I was going to say is that then, so you have a dream, and then you do the reality check and you're like, no, I couldn't actually do that. And then where do you go? Well, you get to go stand amongst the crowd of most other people who have also done a reality check, and they will pad your ego and say, it's good that you're realistic. It's okay, right? And they will allow you and encourage you to stay in the mediocre instead of going for greatness.
And they will give you that feeling of security and safeness. And it's okay. We also didn't make it.
Yeah.
We all,
I even look like in the city that I'm living in, and I never really noticed it before, but now, like when I moved away and then when I came back, I've really noticed that there is for lack of a better word, a crop of people who seem to, so here in Regina, it's Saskatchewan Fashion Week. And so all of these really interesting people that I follow on Instagram in Regina, like the little tiny city of Regina, all the cool people are going to Fashion Week. But is it really the cool people that are going to Fashion Week? No, we're talking like these are the owners of businesses. These are the entrepreneurs. These are these are people who are elevated in society, not because of where they came from, but because of what they've done with their lives, right? And they all hang out together because you want to be with like-minded company, right? You don't want to be with people who are going to pull you down. And they talk more about this. He talks more about this in these chapters. I love this. I realized I didn't have to be smart. I just had to be determined, motivated, and focused. Well, when I look at those people, and I do know some of them, I look at those people, I'm like, yeah, you know what? They're determined, motivated, and focused on what they wanted out of life. That's why they are where they are. That's why they're at the forefront, not sitting at home in front of the TV on a Friday night, or do you know what I mean? But there's a draw to be a part of that group.
Mhm.
And to me, the draw is not, oh, well, we could take pictures together and it would be really fun to rub shoulders. It's like, no, like if my draw to be there is because I want to be around like-minded individuals. I want to pull myself up further. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that all these people are the cream of the crop. I'm sure there's a couple bad apples in there too, but I think you guys understand what I'm saying.
But it's the similar version of where the saying is used, you're most like the 5 people that you hang around with the most.
Yeah.
And you kind of use that as a gauge of who you become. If those 5 people are pulling you down and keeping you mediocre, keeping you in that safe zone, you will also stay there, right?
Well, you remember that exercise that we did at Ruby Retreat where we had to list, they said 5 to 10 people who you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
And then you needed to put beside their name, if you're a positive, if they are a positive, if they add value to your life, if they really don't do anything, like they don't add or take away, or if they take away, right? Some of those people you can't get away from because they're your family. But
you can still, like sometimes that's a huge stumbling block in Plexus, not having supportive family.
mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to go here, but you know what? It's such a big thing.
Yeah, we talked about this week in my team too.
Not having supportive family is not a crutch for you not to succeed.
No.
I know tons and tons, probably hundreds of diamonds who have family, very, very close, special people to them that have never supported them. Kristen and Jarrett were double diamonds. And I don't know, to me, I only saw success in their Plexus business. And one time we were sitting and chatting and having coffee. I think it was convention. It was late at night and we all went out for a cup of coffee. And he said, yeah, he had a family member and they had, they didn't see each other very often. They had gotten together and the brother had, or brother-in-law, whatever it was, I don't know, I don't remember, had looked at him and he said, so you guys still doing that thing? That thing, that thing. And he said he had shrugged his shoulders and so far he had just left it right there. You don't need to feed that. You don't need to pick up that sword and fight that battle. Let them think that you're just still doing that thing.
Yeah.
And this guy probably had what? Hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans or debt that he was going to school to be some kind of professional.
Yeah.
We don't
I think too, and I mean, we don't need to go here either, but I think it is giving somebody else the permission to speak over your life, right? Or needing that affirmation.
Yes.
And you need to take that away. Like if you've got people who are not supportive of what you're doing, you really need to walk through this mentally and think, okay, I'm taking away the permission that I ever gave you to have a say over what goes on in my life. I no longer give you permission to be one of those people, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't need to say it to them, but say it in your own mind. I'm taking away that permission that I once gave you. You are not one of those people, right? And I mean, I think of Cody Helmer, who, yes, she had so many negative influences, family, close friends. And when she decided that she was going to do Plexus, she drew her line in the sand. She wrote everybody a message and she sent them and basically said, this is not about you. This is about me. I'm doing something for me. And I can't have you watching and being a part of it because I feel like you're a negative influence. I still want to be your friend. I will still say hello to you on the street. We'll still meet up for coffee, whatever. But
And
I
it's
can't have
almost
you
like
on my social media.
it's almost like you are giving yourself permission then to move ahead instead of allowing them
Yeah.
to speak that over you. And like for myself, and I think everyone has to learn what works for themselves, but for myself, I mentally prep myself before I walk into situations like that. I know where my situations like that are, and it's not like I'm going to go in blind and darn, I'm all going to convince you today. That ain't going to happen. That ain't going to happen. And it's not worth your breath, energy, or anything at all. But mentally prep yourself before you go. And just like that, don't allow them to speak that over you. Allow that, like I visualize water off a duck's back. I
Yeah.
I visualize those words running down my back, pouring down the street. Bye.
Yeah.
I don't need them, right? But then I also, like going forward a little bit here, Johnetta, she maintained the vision she had for her future. And at the beginning of every semester, I think this is just such a hugely important thing. Visualizing of where you're going, what it's going to look like for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
She went to the bookstore on campus, tried on a cap and gown, looking at herself in the mirror and imagining what it would be like to graduate. What is it going to look like when you become a diamond? What is it going to look like when you achieve that next rank? What is it going to look like when you, whatever your goal is, insert goal here, right? And she realized that other people were wanting to take that away from her. Same scenario. Just like you might have those people in your life that are wanting to take that away from you, right? She responded, you sure can love you if I love me, because she had chosen. And I really, really like that visual, because she had chosen, and imagine where she came from. She had chosen because when she realized she loved herself, she knew that she could go for it. She knew that she was going there. And the same thing, I think we allow other people to take that from us. When they speak that over us, we take it and say, yeah, you're probably right. Man.
I've been really, so two things. I love Carrie Wilkerson talking about if they're not paying your bills, using your shower, or raising your babies, they have no say in what is going on in your life. None. I love that, right? But the other thing is I've been really concentrating, this has just been rolling around in my brain on the immediate and the eternal.
Mm-hmm.
What am I doing that on the other side of eternity, 10,000 years in, am I going to look back on my life and say the things that I was worrying about then had no bearing on the eternal at all? Right? Yes, it can feel like relationships. I can imagine that having a mom who would be very unsupportive, who was close to me, that would be really, really difficult. But you've got to ask yourself, is this important? Where's the pinnacle? Where's the pain point? Right? We talk about that sometimes when we're setting goals. If you don't have, diamond is the pinnacle, right? But what's the pain point if you don't reach it? If the pain point of reaching your goal, flipping it around, is that you will have strained relationships in your family and you can't handle that because they can't handle you getting better, then you're never going to get there. But if you're willing to walk out of that and figure out how to deal with that, just like Jarrett did, right? Yeah, I am. I remember somebody high up in the other organization that I used to be in. She met this man. She was widowed or something, and she met this man, and they were talking, and she's finding him very interesting. And he says to her, "So what do you do?" She's like, "Well, I peddle candles." Right? She was the top of our company, and that was her response was, "I peddle candles." And I thought that's always stuck with me, because I thought, she at that point wasn't willing to give him permission to weigh in on her success or her business or her life, right? She wanted to get to know him better. So maybe you just, again, need to take that permission back from some of those people and move on.
I like what Amy said in our chat there. She said, adjusting your expectation of an interaction will adjust your review of the interaction. I no longer expect my sister-in-law to converse with me. So when she says hello, I'm pleasantly surprised. I have so totally done that. I'm like, you know what? No expectations. I'm going in. They don't need to talk to me. They don't need to acknowledge me. They don't need to affirm me at any level at all. And when they do, you're like, thank you.
Yeah.
Because you have set your bar and not allowed it to be a pain point.
Right? And also your self-worth is coming from within, not from the affirmations of other people.
Absolutely.
Right? If you know who you are,
I think sometimes people don't realize you don't have to be mean, ignorant, or rude in order to separate yourself from that. You can be the kindest person in that room. You totally can. You do not have to be mean to them. You smile, you talk about them, not about yourself, because it's so much easier to keep the topics off of those difficult places then, right? And if they then respond, then you're just like, good to know.
I think that this actually plays into the next topic on self-esteem. Because if we really do have a healthy amount of self-esteem, we aren't going to feel as crumpled by somebody's offhanded remark. And honestly, they might make a remark to you that they never think a second thought on, that you spend forever mulling over and rehashing and all those things. It's impossible to consistently behave in a manner inconsistent with how we see ourselves. We can do very few things in a positive way if we feel negative about ourselves.
That's huge.
Mindset.
That's mindset all the way. Zig Ziglar has some incredible mindset training.
I posted a quote of his this morning.
Did you shower though?
Actually, I didn't. I was like, well, I put on deodorant, I washed my face. That's bathing. Every aspect of their lives is impacted by the way they see themselves. I agree. Again, back to my friend. That's not a very happy existence if you feel like you have no value to add to the world. How do you even exist, right? I mean, and I think there's a difference, right? You can be conceited and think that you've got all this value to give and everybody should be paying attention to you, or you can be hungry for things that are going to add value to yourself so that you then in turn can add value to others.
And that leads right into the law of the lid. This is one of the very first things that I learned when I came to Plexus, and just in general, that leadership levels were not reflected based upon position. And I felt like that gave me a lot of, I don't know if peace is the word to use, but it gave me a lot of understanding and possibly more compassion from the situations that I had come from, where leadership had been horribly weak, but they still had that position. And so when you're working under someone that has a very, very weak level of leadership, they put a lid on the rest of the organization. And I never understood that before I came to Plexus. And then I was able to look back and see that's why, like, the level of leadership there was so terribly weak that the law of the lid only reaches as high as what your leadership level is going to go. And I think, I don't know, maybe we should explain a little bit the law of the lid. Maybe some people here haven't read that yet, but he talks a little bit about perhaps you want to build a large organization, and that desire, no matter how great, will be limited by your leadership. It is a lid on your potential. So if your desire is to be a 10, but your self-esteem is a 5, you'll never perform at the level of 10, right? You're always going to perform at a 5 or lower. People are never able to outperform their self-image. If you feel inadequate to face challenges, unworthy of love or respect, unentitled to happiness, and fear assertive thoughts, wants, or needs, if you lack basic self-trust, self-respect, and self-confidence, your self-esteem deficiency will limit you no matter what other assets you possess. That is so huge. That is so incredibly huge. You see this all, and I'm going to reflect that into Plexus a little bit, because as soon as you start seeing that lid being lifted, possibly someone spoke some confidence and some belief into someone and help them to start believing in themselves. And all of a sudden, you're going to start seeing their lid lifting. They're sponsoring people that are with a higher level of leadership as well. They're sharing more boldly about what they love and care for, right? And so many different places you'll see that law of the lid stays on people, and it limits their capabilities so much. And you know that person itself could be at a 10 or higher, bringing in potential, changing lives, bringing in runners and reaching the top of the company or whatever it may be, but they've kept that lid there, likely for self-protection, very often.
Yeah, totally. Hey, if you guys are loving John Maxwell, you've never read anything of his before, both Marge and I, and I'm going to talk for her, would suggest that after this book, you guys, if you want to jump into another Maxwell book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership is a phenomenal book. Very much a precursor to the 5 levels of leadership. You can read the 5 levels before you read the other, but it works better the other way. And we would encourage you guys to look more into the law of the lid. Even just Google the law of the lid, John Maxwell, and see what you find, because it is so, that's why we hear from him so often in Plexus, because what he talks about is just so relevant to what we are dealing with. The value we place on ourselves is usually the value others place on us. Yikes. If you're constantly feeling undervalued by other people, if you're constantly feeling like nobody really sees your potential and people think very little of you, I think the question is, where is your level of value, self-value, and what do you expect from yourself?
Where do you take that self-value from? Right? And sometimes it takes a little bit of digging. It takes a little bit of pulling back the layers, being very, very honest with yourself. Why does that matter to you? Why do you allow someone to determine your value, right?
Yeah. I love this. You don't have to accept what people say you have to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know, it takes a lot of inner strength. I'm sure we can all think of people who may have a similar situation, not the same, but like Janetta comes from an extreme situation, but I'm sure we can all think of people who come from a background that just seems like it has its hooks in them, and you're not surprised that they can't pull themselves out of it, right? It takes a lot of inner strength in order to decide to do that.
Absolutely.
Like incredible inner strength, but it's possible. So if that happens to be you, if you relate on some level, it is possible. It's not easy. It's not comfortable, but it's possible. If you want to become the person you have the potential to be, you must believe you can. Okay,
well,
so
I like
steps
that.
to...
Just right before that, I'm going to butt in a little bit.
Yep.
If you put small value on yourself, rest assured
Yeah.
the world will not raise your price.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. You know, when we look at people who are influencers, right? You know, Marge and I talk about this often, right? You find somebody, you friended somebody on Instagram or on Facebook or whatever, and you're looking and you're realizing that they've got an incredible amount of influence, and how great it would be if they would join you because of the amount of influence they have over people. When you start to pick that apart, it just didn't happen just because. Like, that's intentional to have that kind of influence on people, right? What have they done in order to gain that influence? What could you do in order to have the same kind of influence? I had somebody say to me a couple of weeks ago, you have a lot of influence over people. And it shocked me, which might be surprising to you guys. But what shocked me even more was the fact that it shocked me that she said it. Is that funny? Like one of my main goals is to add value to people, right? Like that is what I try to do with my life. And when somebody tells me that people expect me to add value, or that I am an influencer, I should be like, oh, awesome. I'm succeeding at what my goal is, right? but it surprised me. And so there again in lies some of those deeper levels of, what do I actually think of myself? What do I need to, how to win friends and influence people. Thank you, Barb. Yep.
And I think sometimes, like for me and you, we've been working on this for a while, so we know some of the things that we're watching for. Like I like these next steps that he's going into, right? There's some things that we have been trained on and are training in that we've been practicing for a while. And sometimes we don't see the drastic before and after because we've grown into it gradually, like you have. And then all of a sudden in hindsight, you're like, whoa, that used to be me. I haven't been there in forever. You realize that you've come away from it. You've grown past it, right? So that's where your level of influence definitely had grown.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because even Eva will say, I will look back on my Facebook memories to see what I was posting about before Plexus, like years and years and years ago. That's a really interesting check-in if you've done a lot of mindset shifting, to look at those memories and see what you were posting. Were you complaining? Were you taking part in drama? Were you like, and now you think, oh my gosh, I would never say that. I know better than that. I can't believe that I did that. But instead of being ashamed of it, you should be like, look at how much I've grown. Good for me, right? So again, that leads into guard your self-talk.
Oh, this one is so huge. This one is so much
this.
bigger than what people ever realize, right? The
Well,
running.
and as a parent, I got a little bit of a smack on that too. I don't know if anybody else did, but this whole, by the time you're 17 years old, you've heard no, you can't, an average of 150,000 times. You've heard yes, you can about 5,000 times. That's 30 no's for every yes. Therefore, we should be really good at network marketing. Just going to say that. That makes for a powerful belief of I can't.
Mm-hmm. And so some of us have been a little bit under the care of Preston Pugmire.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. This, just seeing how and learning how your subconscious affects absolutely everything that you will do, acquire, or think that you can do. When you look at, do you encourage yourself or do you criticize yourself? If you are positive, then help to create that positive self-image. If you're negative, do you undermine your self-worth? Where does negative critical self-talk come from? It's all those peeling back those layers and really being aware of what your subconscious is telling you. Like I don't know about you guys, but I don't think I remember anyone ever in my life, in my childhood, even in years before Plexus, ever telling me, well, is that how you think about it? Nobody ever questioned my thoughts, right? Nobody ever told me to watch your thoughts. Not everything you think is true. Like all those little snippets of things that all of a sudden were like, yeah, that makes sense, seeing the impact that it has. Like Janelle said, like by the time you're 17, you've heard, and that affirms that strong I can't. And then you're going right into the whole, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right, because you have affirmed it.
Well, and I was trying to think about how I could change that when I'm talking to my kids. Instead of saying no, like I don't have a problem saying no to my kids, but what if they asked me if they could do something, and instead of saying no, you need to clean your room first, I said you can, however, you need to clean your room first. Right? Yeah, I wonder what that would do for mindset shifting. Yeah. Okay. Can I skip to number 2?
I'm just going to quickly grab that last paragraph there. You need to learn to become your own encourager, right?
Yes.
You really,
internally motivated.
Yes. You really, really need to learn to become your own encourager, your own cheerleader. Every time you do a good job, don't just let it pass. Girls, I'm on a winning streak. Right?
Yeah, that's a Preston thing.
And if you want to go listen to his podcast, he's got some great podcasts.
And TED Talks and that kind of thing.
Yes. Every time you choose discipline over indulgence, don't tell yourself that you should have anyway. Recognize how much you are helping yourself. Every time you make a mistake, don't bring up everything that's wrong with you. Tell yourself you're paying the price for growth and that you will learn to do better next time. Every positive thing you can say to yourself will help. And the thing is, it relates back to, I'm quickly going to add this, it relates back to a belief is just a thought that you have confirmed to yourself often enough that it's become a belief to you. And so therefore, your beliefs aren't concrete. You can go back and affirm and affirm and affirm with positive and grow to be better.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
Stop comparing yourself to others. Either you perceive the other person to be far ahead of you and feel discouraged, or you perceive yourself to be better than the other person and you become proud. Neither of these is good for you and neither will help you grow. Again, had a drive with my 13-year-old yesterday, and I said to him, comparison will kill you. The only person you need to be better than is you yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that was really convicting to me. And I don't know if that's where I was reading it or if there's another place where he talks about it. But I just, like, guys, we're learning from this too, because every time you read a book and you're at a different place in your life or you're struggling with different things, they speak to you different ways, right? So what would I need to do today to be better than I was yesterday? It doesn't need to be a gigantic thing. I don't need to go reorganize my kitchen cupboards, just to one up myself. But what little thing could I do today that would make it a bigger success than yesterday? And it doesn't have to be comparing yourself to somebody else and going, oh, I need to be better than this person. No, just be better than you yesterday and you'll be winning.
I think this is a huge topic in Plexus in itself, because of the fact that there is no concrete timeline of how it will look, of where you will be, how you will get there, what your journey will be. And so when people, like when our uplines tell us, embrace the journey, this is yours. Yours is going to look different than everyone else's, right? And so then we see other people that have started alongside of us and they might be all the way there already, right? I think of Clarita. Some of you probably know Clarita Barkman. Tiny little mouse of a woman. And she started under Shelley Nisley. And they had grown up very conservative, just the sweetest little church mouse ever. And I remember thinking when I met her, oh my goodness, how is she ever going to make it? Everybody's going to run her over. I felt like being her mom because she was so delicate. You know what? She is of the strongest diamonds that I know. She's very quiet, but she leads with power and strength like nobody's business. Don't compare yourself. Don't assume, right? And her business also took off extremely fast. Extremely fast. Now, if you stop and get stuck there, the comparison itself is going to rob you of any joy that you have. And it's also going to tell you that you're not quite as good as what they are. And really, when you take it side by side, how can we even start to compare in Plexus? Because when you think of teams, Janelle's team, Marge's team, we're all different people. There's no way on earth that two groups of people can stay at the same pace, do the same thing, reach the same goals, because we're working with people. These are lives. These are relationships. They're not just beings that you move ahead when needed. So the comparison factor in itself is just, it's a huge mental thing that you really, really need to work on eliminating.
Yeah.
And I think
here's the other truth though, you guys. If you don't eradicate comparison from your journey right now, it will still be your partner when you're a diamond. And like Marge was saying, it will rob you of joy. Just because you hit the level of success that you're looking for doesn't mean you will stop comparing yourself to other people. And how horrible would it be to get to diamond and have that be a joyless place to be, because all you're doing is comparing yourself. No, stop it. Stop it.
Oh, and then let's go into the limiting beliefs. Ooh, this is
Oh, Marge, we could just camp right here. We'll just hang out.
Spend all Saturday here.
We may have to stop after this one.
There's something that I have really, really, really been focusing on in the last 6 months in my team. And I'm just going to start I think I'm going to start having personal voice message. I'm going to pick 5 people a day and just voice message them and tell them no self-limiting beliefs today. If you thought about yourself the way that I see potential in you, you would not have one self-limiting belief today at all. Because you know what? Other people see our potential so much clearer than we ourselves ever will. And so if someone, say that someone is your upline, sideline, whatever it may be, says that you're good at something, that you have they admire what you're doing there and there and there, take it, believe it, and do not say, oh no, that's not true. No. Excuse me. Self-limiting beliefs will keep you stuck, for real. Self-limiting beliefs will keep you stuck in a manner of where, I'm trying to find the words of how it'll keep you stuck because you have affirmed so concretely to yourself that you cannot get past it. And really, when you just stop and take away some of those little layers of self-limiting beliefs of what's holding you back, all of a sudden you see it's not a wall, it's a pebble in the path. It's not a wall that you're coming up against. You're not stuck. You have affirmed that belief to yourself so strongly that you think that there's a big wall that you're running up against. You think you could never get past 500 points. You think that you can never get past, developing 5 silvers, whatever the case may be, whatever your issue may be. It's not a wall. It's a pebble in the path. That's all it is.
Yeah, totally. I love the 4 steps to transforming limiting beliefs. And I think everyone could do a journal page of this, right? Or 2 or 3 or 4. Identifying a limiting belief that you want to change, determine how the belief limits you, decide how you want to be, act, or feel, create a turnaround statement that affirms or gives you permission to be, act, or feel this new way. We talked about this a little bit last week when we were talking about fears in the law of intentionality. And just how not only do you need to find that self-limiting belief, but you need to turn it around. You can't just be like, I'm now aware of this. It's how am I going to change it and move forward?
I always like how, and I'm a little bit full of Preston right now because there's so much of limiting mindset beliefs and things like that, right? And he really is able to help you go to a place of where you're going to decide how to be, act, or feel. And like you said, it's not going to be a switch. It's not going to be, I'm done now. I'm moving on. I'm not going to have any more self-limiting beliefs. It's not that. Almost lost my train of thought there. When a self-limiting belief becomes such a strong thing, and it might be something that you've told yourself all your life, right? And when you give yourself the permission to go there, let's say all of a sudden you feel super anxious about something when you think about what's supposed to happen, what you would like to happen, a goal that is coming, and you're just oh, that knot in your stomach is just making you nauseous. Stop and then decide and feel that feeling. Why is this making me feel like this? There's no difference, your brain does not know the difference between excitement or anxiety. They're the same emotion. So why would you suffer and feel the anxiety and be scared and pull yourself down and speak all these negative things? Oh, this is never going to happen. I'm so scared. Why would you do that when instead it's the same emotion to flip it around and use the positive affirmations? I'm winning. I'm doing this. This is happening. It's the exact same thing. Your brain doesn't even know the difference.
Yep. Our brains are funny things, aren't they? It's just like when you tell yourself something, when you start to feed into your brain positivity, it can't tell you that you're lying because your brain does not pick that apart, right? It's like, how many times do we hear people say, I have the fastest growing team in Plexus? And they tell themselves that over and over and over again. And even though you're not Celeste Gwynn, right? Your brain doesn't know that. And so it will affect your actions accordingly as you continue to tell yourself that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we could camp there forever, but I think we did another Zoom on that. Refer to the other Zoom. Add value to others.
I love this.
This is what I was thinking about back here when we were talking about a couple of the other things. It's hard to feel bad about yourself when you're doing something good for someone else. I was just going to point out that when Marge and I are talking about, Marge said, I feel like sending all these messages to tell people on my team, like, if you only saw yourself the way that I do, right? That's not just for your upper leaders to do. It's for you guys to do for your teams as well. But here's the other thing that I think is interesting. And I don't want to derail this whole adding value, because adding value is super, super important. And I think I've said it like at least a dozen times already on the call. My husband can struggle with this career path that I have, and he's gotten way better at it. But he's like, your bad day at work is you put on pants and someone is like, hey, good job. Right? Like, that's a bad day for you. He's like, a good day for me is I go to work and I don't get shot. Right? Like, it's so different than any other profession. But at some point in time, when you start to go up the ranks and you're improving yourself and you become the encourager. And there's a point where that outside encouragement lessens, because you're no longer a baby. Not that I'm calling y'all babies, but you're kind of our kids, right? And we feel like we need to feed into you. And then at some point in time, it's not like we forget about you, but it's like, okay, we've done the feeding. Now you need to model what we've done for you to other people. And we'll tell you you're doing a good job. But this is where that self-motivation comes in, and how adding value to others will elevate the value that you feel in yourself. So don't be looking for it always on the external, because it's not always going to be there. And you don't want your actions in your business to depend on, oh, nobody's noticing what I'm doing. Nobody's told me that I'm doing a good job lately. I must not be, again, slide into the comparison pool, right? You don't want to do that. So
there's several things I think about when you say that. I think about years ago, and I probably did it more for a coping method, but years ago, I was alone a lot with my babies. My husband was gone 6.5 days a week. Sick babies can tend to create overwhelmed mamas, right? And every time I would feel like I cannot do this, I am going nuts, I would find someone that I could go out and either help, uplift, encourage, or just, have some time with someone else. And nothing works better than to go somewhere where they have not quite what you have. And I'm not talking about physical things. I'm not talking about material things. I'm talking about their situation is likely a lot harder than yours. And so if you go into a situation where, that's a lot harder than what I'm going through, your instant level of appreciation is going to be higher. You're instantly going to want to help others easier and more, right? And so a lot of that created a method within myself that whenever I was feeling sad or sorry for myself, I would go find someone else to help that had a worse situation than mine, right? Because it uplifted me and gave me an ability to help someone else. So now, if you take that, a very famous saying of Eva's is, I can do anything for a day. I have learned to embrace that so so much. You know what? There is days when whatever you're asked to be doing is freaking hard. And when you get to the higher ranks of this company, we have been through some, we had to kind of blaze our own trail. There was no path. And we have done things that were very, very hard, like pull Super Saturday out of a hat in under 2 hours without a script. You know what? The only thing I kept saying to myself is I can do anything for a day. Tomorrow will be better. Because you know what? That truly affirms of where you're at and how you learn to face those places. And the biggest thing that you see is if you make it about other people, you won't even think about how hard it is for you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, can we finish this chapter in 5 minutes? Is that even possible? We've gotten one chapter. Good thing I said at the beginning, it's really hard to like plow through Maxwell. He just has so much, right? Do the right thing, even if it's the hard thing. Being true to yourself and your values is a tremendous self-esteem builder. Practice discipline daily in a specific area of your life. Discipline was my word a couple of years ago for the year. And he talks about words and that kind of thing in number 9. But man, it's something that I struggle with. Sorry, we're going back?
Yeah. Can I go back to number 5? There was a large conversation going on in a chat yesterday.
Yes.
And I'm just going to bring it up because it's very important. And it was all about, I had helped this girl so much and she was asking for samples, and I sent samples and I poured into her, and someone else signed her. How dare they? How dare they?
And then somebody else came in and told their story about how it had happened to them, and it was so horrible.
This is what it means to help people. Does it always mean that the reward will be yours? No. Does it always mean that just because you put forth the effort that you will be the recipient of the reward? No. We don't always win. We don't always win. We are in the business of helping people. Did that person end up signing up under someone else? Yes, they did. I cannot count how many people I have had like that run through my business. I have invested, poured, and given into, and someone else went and took them. It's okay. It's okay. That's what we do. That is what grows and primes you to become a better person, to help more, to add value to others, but we don't always get paid for it. It's like yesterday I was imagining that whole class full of kids in a school. Visualize this with me. And there's going to be 2 prizes, and there's 20 kids, and everybody's working hard. They're going to get the prize. But I did my best, and they didn't get a prize. No, but you did your best. Be proud of that. Not everyone needs a prize. Not everyone needs to win. You still grow and stretch yourself just by putting forth the effort. And so we just basically said, I'm so sorry. There is many fish in the sea. You still helped someone. That's what we do. We're in the people helping business.
Yeah.
Right?
And I firmly believe that the people that are on my team right now are the people that are supposed to be on my team right now. And the people who have left my team are not actually supposed to be on my team. And the people who didn't choose to join my team, again, not supposed to be on my team, right? And how would you feel if you clawed that person back to yourself and somehow, right, it's going to sour the journey, and then all of a sudden, like, guys, it's okay.
Yeah.
And here's just another thing. We get it's great to be on the journey with each other, but check yourself before you start going, oh, that was me, and oh, that was me, and oh, there's such a thing as too much affirmation when it's going on the south side rather than heading in the upwards.
Well, that could, kind of lead into that discipline area.
Yeah, it could. It could. What is that? Life and death is in the power of the tongue. Yeah, discipline yourself.
He talks about how when you chip away at it, like a little piece at a time, it's not as overwhelming as when you leave it, right? And I wrote down the word laundry. It's just like, you know, you let it pile up and pile up and pile up, and you're like, oh my goodness, why did I ever do this? This is going to take forever. However, if you do a little bit at a time all the time and stay up with it, it's not a big deal. And here I am sitting on Saturday with like baskets full of laundry. You know, it's that self-discipline thing in your brain.
Yeah, totally.
We allow
Celebrate small victories, like Marge was saying. I'm winning.
I'm on a winning streak.
I'm on a winning streak. That's a Preston Pugmire thing.
Preston has a little bit of a graph thing. I'm not sure if I'm going to explain it the right way, but he has a little bit of a graph thing where he says it's lowering your expectations, not having such extremely high expectations of yourself. And then, help me out, Christina, what's the other side? He teaches about finding the sweet spot in the middle, lowering your expectations. Oh, and celebrating more victories on the other side, right? And so you're not having your expectations to the level of absolute perfection anymore, but you're bringing it down and saying, it's okay right here. And then you're also bringing up the things that you're celebrating and winning at, right? You raise the bar. You don't say, well, I was going to do that anyway, and then not celebrate it. Celebrate what your winning is, right? And then you find that sweet spot in the middle, and you'll be amazed that, I'm not sure if I can see that, Christina. You'll be amazed that you're going to be celebrating more wins that way. There's a lot more victories to be had that way.
Yep, absolutely. I think that top of page 46 is a really good check-in to see where you're at. Where do you find yourself in those things? So we'll let you guys do those on your own. And you know, things like this, I always love sticky notes stuck wherever. You know, I'm a visual person. And so if I'm struggling with something, it will be stuck on a sticky note, you know, in my face for me to see it all the time. Okay, we're almost there.
Embrace a positive vision for your life based on what you value. I think that is huge. If you don't have a vision, you are likely to be apathetic. Every positive action you take helps you to believe in yourself, which in turn helps you to take more positive action. It's a snowball effect, guys.
Yeah.
It's something that, and I think apathy is something that is not talked about enough. You see people go through life, and I think of the saying of don't live the same year 75 times over and call it a life.
Yeah.
Don't be apathetic. Don't just allow life to control you. Like, you do have the abilities to set that into action.
Yeah. I think we talked about this again last week. Again, can I reference Preston Pugmire? You can tell where we're at, guys. He talked about if you were going to be in exactly the same place next year as you are right now, would you be happy? Or where do you want to see yourself in a year from now, and what things that you need to change? Right? You can't just assume that it's going to happen. No. You need to take some control over it and force change. Okay.
One word strategy. Janelle talked about hers had been discipline.
Had been. Not saying that I succeeded, but that was my focus.
It's a good.
I actually picked 2 words this year. But, you know, I think that this is a really good focus and a really good practice. Mm-hmm. It doesn't need to be like a word for a year, but it can be a word for this month or something like that, just to show where you're going to focus on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is that my internet or is that hers?
But yeah, I probably couldn't make you guys stop reading, because at this point in time, you're probably just so interested in the book. I hope you are anyway. This was a book that I really advocated for, because I think it's amazing. And when I posted on my Facebook how many people, or I posted that we were doing this book, and how many people outside of Plexus were like, that is an amazing book. That is an amazing, amazing book. And I think that this book needs to be like a prerequisite for life. I will be making my teenager read this in a year or so. So anyway, I hope that that was a good way for you guys to start off your Saturday. And I'm going to go back to my worship conference. And yeah, we will see you here, same bat time, same bat channel, 9 a.m. next week. Homework, guys, don't just read the book. If there is a place in here that you're like, oh, that just hit me right in the gut, spend some time there this week. Ask yourself the hard questions. Write stuff out, journal. This will only grow you if you let it. It's not going to, just being a part of the call is not going to grow you. I mean, it might give you a couple seeds to plant, but if you really desire growth, go all in. Like Christina said, answer the questions at the end of the chapter. Do the reflection stuff. This is in your hands.
I think.
Are you back?
I'm back. Yeah,
you are back. That's okay. I was just wrapping up.
My internet crap. I think of Kristen when you say that, and she talks about being a personal growth glutton. You know what? We can get stuck there too. We can get stuck in the whole, I'm reading every book, I'm watching every video, but technically it's the action of the feet that is going to matter if you're going to get there or not. Right?
Yeah. It's
not about, oh, I've watched training videos all day. But when was the last time that you sponsored someone?
Yeah.
You know, it's the action. And I think about the whole Genevieve, I always have such a hard time saying her name. Genevieve Scory, she had this, someone help me out. It was failure is not, but what was failure not? That I posted it in my team group, and I'm trying to come up with it now. But failure is settling for where you're at.
Right.
It's telling yourself, it's okay. I'm good here. I'll just stay here. When you're doing this growth and when you're reading these books, and like Janelle said, some of those points just hit so hard and you're like, oh, I'm going to put this book down and walk away, not think about that anymore. Go back to that feeling. Why? Why is that hurting? Right? Like you're watching these training videos and everything sounds so good. I'm just going to do exactly that. And then everything's going to happen. But you're just going to watch another video. You're just going to prepare a little bit more. We become self-growth, personal growth gluttons is what Kristen calls it. And you have to do personal growth and then put the action into your feet, because making those mistakes and the learning part is what's going to produce the results.
Yeah. And personal growth stuff does not ever take the place of IPA.
No.
Because it doesn't matter how many books you read, it's not going to fuel, like it might fuel you to do your business, but if you don't put one foot in front of the other to do those things that you know you're supposed to do, right? Yeah. All right. You guys have an awesome weekend. We love seeing comments in our chat, your takeaways, things you're going to work on. The more vulnerable, real, transparent you guys can be, the better this is going to be for everybody. So
thank you,
have a great week, guys. See you.